I'll be, I guess, leading the panel, facilitating it, but I won't be doing much of the speaking. I'll just be asking the questions. But I'll give you a little introduction. Anyway, I work with Crimson as a strategist. So I oversee students' applications and see the enhancements of their profiles through academics, extracurriculars, standardized testing, essays, everything that is necessary to go into the process. I graduated from Harvard University 2 years ago. I'm from Essex. I'm from Brentwood. The less said about that, the better. But anyway, I had the most amazing 4 years there. I lived there for 6 years. I moved back in September. The long and the short of it for me is that it was the best decision I ever made. I knew that I wanted to be in the USA. I didn't know what I wanted to study. I knew that they had a fantastic education system out there, and so I wanted to make the most of that. And that's why I made my decision to go over there. But today we're going to be hearing from our wonderful students about their decisions. I applied about 7 years ago, and things have changed. And I'm looking forward to hearing from them as well about what really, made the choice right for them. So we're going to pass the mic up and down as we have these conversations. But if you guys would love to just share a little bit intro about you guys, what made you choose the US, what made you choose the universities that you're looking to go to, what you're interested in studying, everything of that sort. So we'll start with Boris.
So I'm Boris. I study in Dulwich College, which is in the south of London. I moved to the UK when I was 14, and for a while I've known I wanted to study maths as pure as possible, and then somehow applied at the end. And so I applied to universities with that in mind. The reason I wanted to apply to the US, apart from just having more options for backup in terms of unis, was also the freedom you have to explore other subjects you enjoy. So I've always enjoyed languages and philosophy, for example, and choosing to do maths in the UK, I wouldn't be able to do those at all. Whereas going to the US, I can do them not only at the start, but also somehow incorporate them into my degree. I think that was the biggest selling point of the US for me.
Hi guys, I'm Josh. I'm going to Stanford, and I'm from Cheshire. So I went to what's called Holmes Chapel Comprehensive School, just a bit south of Manchester. And I'm going to be studying product design probably. So the reason I wanted to go to the US is I'm into like entrepreneurship and tech entrepreneurship. So obviously like Stanford and Silicon Valley, that's the place to be. And also just like a sense of adventure to like just go to the US, and it seems a lot more fun out there, like with everything, all the culture and stuff. But yeah, that's me.
Hi everyone, my name's Annika and I've been accepted into University of Pennsylvania. I'm hoping to study linguistics there. I've just finished my A-levels in maths, physics, German and Spanish. The reason why I wanted to go to America is obviously because of the broad education system. Due to my A-levels, I'd really like to continue not only with like maths and science, but also with languages. And I really think America allows you to do this, so I'm really excited.
Hi everyone, my name's Don and I'll be attending the University of Chicago to major in, hopefully, in economics. I've just finished my A-levels in maths, further maths, economics and chemistry. And the main reason I applied to the US, similar to these guys, is because of sort of the broader system. I'm able to study like a range of subjects. So as well as studying economics, I can also study sort of maths and politics on the side. And also I find that the US is sort of more open to research. And that's something I want to do in the future in terms of working with professors and that sort of thing. So yeah.
Yeah, round of applause. So, I mean, these guys have done such a fantastic job, right? Like, these universities, we think in the UK, actually, the acceptance rates for Oxford and Cambridge, it differs by course, but it often is around 15 to 20%. These universities come out to between, I think, like 4 and 8%. Right, so they're really tough places to get into. So these guys really put in the effort and did a fantastic job. And I can say that personally because a couple of these guys I worked with personally, and it was just an absolute joy. We don't need to talk about that, but we'll get to their experiences in due course. So again, when I applied, I decided very late. I saw the US system when I just finished year 12, just finished lower sixth. I thought I wanted to go to Cambridge to study maths, interestingly. I realized I actually despised maths. Yeah, I'm really sorry. But I thought, well, I don't really want to do this. And then I don't actually remember how I stumbled upon the US process. But, as these guys have said, the liberal arts system is very flexible. That's what drew me to it. But I'd love to hear from you guys as to when it began. Right? So when did you first think of the USA? Have you been thinking about it for a while? Is it something that you kind of stumbled upon like me? And then kind of just talk through how you came to learn more about the process and also just kind of how you ended up with Crimson as well. Where did that come into it?
Well, so for me, the thing about the US is I realized quite late that I actually wanted to go through the process. My first choice and kind of my dream school was Cambridge for maths. And I think it has been for years. But my parents have always kind of mentioned these names of Stanford and Harvard and the Ivy League. So for me, I think towards the middle of year 12, it kind of clicked where there was an optional course to take at my school for preparing for the SATs. And I just kind of thought, well, why not? I don't really have sports or music. I might as well do as much as I can in academics. And it was kind of an option to start the process then. I really got involved with the whole essays, writing all of the essays and the actual tailored applications in the summer, going from year 12 to year 13. And then year 13 was pretty loaded with all of the exams and entrance tests and interviews, as well as for the US as well as for Cambridge. So it started towards the end of year 12.
So I used to do science fair, so I went to a science fair with a guy, he's called Critton. So he was going to Stanford, he's just finished his first year now. So I initially wanted to go to his Imperial to do design engineering, that's what it's called. And then I went to the science fair with this guy, and he was just telling me about Stanford for like a whole week. Because obviously he was excited. It was like this time last year. So then I was like, oh, that sounds good. And I was taking a gap year, so yeah, I took the time to apply, and yeah, that's it.
I think that I knew I've always wanted to study abroad, and because I've always been quite adventurous, I knew America seemed like a really good place to go, but I didn't really consider it until I got my GCSE results, and then from that point it seemed like a possibility and a reality. So it was really like at the beginning of year 12 I started to work really hard for my SATs and my subject tests, and that's when I really committed to studying in America. And we came across Crimson because, well, my family and I, we were trying to like research how to get into it and how to just start the whole process by ourselves. And it was just coming out as like near impossible. There were so many different websites. They were all saying different things. And then we came across Crimson, which was like offering a really a planned schedule of your like the next 2 years of your life, like showing you this is what we're going to do for the first couple of terms, this is what we'll do a bit later on. And it was really just like a structured approach into how you could get into the university. And it really felt like a good way to go down.
So I'm similar to Boris in the fact that my dream school was to go to Cambridge to study economics, but then I'd say, if I'm honest, the reason I wanted to go to the US is because you sort of see in the movies how like American sort of college is like, so I thought, oh, that'd be quite cool. But then I think I was really serious about it in year 11 when I just finished my GCSEs, so I think similar to most of you, when I started weighing up what I'm going to do in the future, I had sort of my UK application, and I just thought I might as well just try the US and see how that goes. And then I found Crimson at a sort of university convention fair with all sort of different US universities. They had their own stand, and I spoke to a couple of people there. And then from there on, I got in contact with sort of the Crimson team. I had my own team, and then yeah, I just started from there.
So Don, you mentioned something important there, right? Like the experience, like what you're seeing on TV is something that actually kind of drew you to it, right? That's not something that you should ignore. It's not something that's facetious, right? We should actually like listen to what is going to make for the best 3 or 4 years of university experience. Something I realized when I was looking at the US was that your 3 years, your 4 years at university, they don't have to only be about sitting in the classroom studying, right? I think that growing up in the UK, there's this conception of university being a process through which you just get a degree, right? Once you get a degree, then you've got a great piece of paper to then go on and get a great job. Then what I've found, which I hope that you guys find as well when you go over to the US, is that it's more than that, right? Like the things that you can get involved in, the extracurricular activities that I engaged with, actually kind of supersede any classes that I took. Don't get me wrong, the classes were amazing, but 2 years ago, sorry, I'm talking about myself now. I realize I'm doing this, but I went on a world tour with an a cappella group for 12 weeks, all expenses paid, which I had no idea I could possibly do ever, right? Let alone at the age of 21, 22. So that's a really important point. And so when you guys continue to look into what you're trying to get out of university, whether in the UK or the US, do not underestimate the importance of those experiential pieces, because they're very important. Boris, you mentioned something about how at your school they gave this optional class for standardized testing, right? Did any of the rest of you have that kind of option at school? No. So there are a lot of schools that are very well equipped, right, to help students apply for the USA. I didn't go to a school like that. And I think I just wanted to highlight that there are different experiences even within the UK in terms of prep. Yeah, I did the SATs and I studied about it for a month just before. I only had one option. You had something to say?
Well, it's just my school wasn't that well prepared.
Sure,
Actually.
okay, right.
They just had this optional course, which was
Yeah.
3 weeks, but none of the advice or like the tailored experience to which you need looks for what. None of that was there. It's literally just 3 weeks of doing past papers for
How did you
SATs.
find that?
I mean, it was helpful to see what the past papers were and
Yeah.
what the exam was, but I don't see how that was a service. Like I couldn't just get it home by
Right.
looking them up or something.
No, sure, absolutely. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about the lead up to the application process, a little bit more about your context. So we know that academics are super important, right? And I think that the four of you are fantastic students. But what were you doing beyond that? What were your extracurricular activities? What things were, you know, your passions? What got you out of bed in the morning? What are the things that, if there's one thing that they need to know about me, it is this thing?
Yeah, so maths is the thing that you said gets me up in the morning. All of my extracurriculars, I don't really do sports, as you may have guessed, and I don't like music, so all of my extracurriculars were linked to academics and to maths somehow. I think I taught maths for a bit at a nearby school. Then I had to, well, I didn't have to, but I opened a society, which was the Fun Maths Problem Solving Society. We had a charity competition, which was my school as well as a couple others. As advised by Crimson, I tried to involve a couple other schools in it, and that actually helped to make it bigger and a thing, not just a competition I ran at my school. I think also what was useful is the student leadership, what's called, I guess. But yeah, I was vice captain at my school as well, the academic vice captain. Which helped. Basically, all of my application was kind of the academic route rather than the sports and music, the all-rounder route. Math, yeah, just focused on maths. Yep.
Yeah, so mine's engineering. So I'm into, like, anyone knows what 3D printers are? Yes, I can't explain it. But yeah, they're like machines that kind of move and make stuff, basically. So I've been building them since I was 13. So I've built probably around 15 by the time now. So I entered one into like the UK Science Fair. It's called the Big Bang competition. That was like this time last year, and I came out with like the grand prize for that. So that was my like main thing, and that was kind of what spurred me on. Because I think you kind of but I think it helps if you have a really like a decent like extracurricular thing. So that was my kind of thing. Then off the back of that, I started a company. So that's why I took a gap year. And then yeah, that's what I've been working on since. Yeah, I think that definitely helped with Stanford because that's like Stanford's very like entrepreneurial. Yeah.
I feel like in America they put a lot of importance on extracurriculars as well as your academic success. That's definitely something that you should work on. So I had 3 main extracurriculars. So my first one was karate, which I achieved a black belt in, and then I spend my weekends coaching younger students and helping them go towards their black belt. And that covered my sports side. My second one was a club that I set up in year 6, which was called NOAA, and it raised awareness for endangered species, and that gained recognition from the Duke of Cambridge and Sir David Attenborough. And my third thing was Model United Nations. I think a lot of you might be aware of that one. I set up that club at my college because it wasn't already there, and I taught the students and taught my peers about how to debate in that style, and we went to conferences. But I definitely think that extracurriculars are really important, and it's good that, especially in America, if they can see that you've been working through them from a younger age, because it shows that you're committed.
So I'd say my extracurriculars were split into sort of 2 strands. So I'm a big sports person. So ever since year 7, I've been playing for my school in football, rugby and cricket. So I used to play for the first teams in all 3 of those sports. So that was that. But also my sort of academic side was economics. So in terms of what I did extracurricular for that subject, I started an economic society at my school in which I invited guest speakers to come in and speak to the school. And I also taught economics to students that were in year 7 and 8 because they don't have the option to study economics at my school until A-level. So I sort of decided to fill that gap because they were interested, especially with sort of the whole Brexit economics debate going on. So that's what I did. And also I did a research project called like an EPQ. Maybe some of you have heard of it. So my EPQ, I sort of analysed the economic development of the Democratic Republic of Congo and South Africa, because I'm originally from the Congo. And so I did sort of like a 150-year sort of history analysis of why South Africa has managed to become one of Africa's most developed economies and why Congo, where I'm from, has sort of lagged behind. So I'd say that really helped with Chicago, especially because they're very research heavy in economics. So that's what helped me, I think.
Let's now talk about kind of your preconceived notions of the process, right? So we went into this process obviously not knowing too much about it, or having a sense of what it might be about. Probably thought it was a little bit more complicated than the UK process. When you went into it, what were the things that you identified as the biggest challenges, right? Like the things that concerned you the most about well, if you're applying this year, it would be like the next 6 months ahead, right? So what would you say those things were for you?
For me, apart from the odds of getting in, the biggest concern was the essays. I applied to 21, I think, unis or 20 unis in the US, and that was a lot of essays. Luckily, I started writing them early because I think I underestimated how many times you need to rewrite them and tailor them and all the details and kind of the phrasing. But obviously, Crimson helped with that a lot, so that was good. Yeah, that was my biggest concern, and definitely the thing I found toughest throughout the process.
And actually, if you guys don't mind also telling us how many universities you applied to as well,
Right.
when it comes down to it.
Oh, so I applied to 5. It was Harvard, Stanford, MIT, University of Pennsylvania, and Columbia. What was the question?
Don't worry. It was when going into the process, what did you
Oh.
think was the biggest challenge?
Yeah, one of the biggest one. Oh, press the button. No,
I think
no, I
it's
didn't.
a lot, right? Yeah, I think it was fine.
Yeah, so my biggest problem was like it was hard to kind of find out like information about it. Like you couldn't know like how good you were like versus other applicants and other stuff like that. Especially as an international person, like you didn't know like SATs, APs, IBs, whatever. I just felt there wasn't too much information. And Crimson like really, like once you start with Crimson, obviously they know all about it. So that was the main thing with me.
So I applied to 7 universities, UPenn, Cornell, Brown, NYU, UCLA, UC Berkeley, and there was one more, University of Chicago, I think it was, maybe. I can't remember, sorry. But I think that when you first of all start with Crimson, like one of the first things that they'll introduce you to is the SATs, and you'll get your SAT tutor. So I think that's the thing that I found the hardest initially, because that was the thing that hit me straight in the face, like starting year 12, starting my A-levels, but also trying to revise for the SATs. If you take maths at A-level, obviously the maths SAT is a lot easier, but the SAT tutor was really helpful with that. Like she really told me exactly what I needed to know. We met weekly, sometimes twice a week, and you'd get set the correct amount of homework, and by the time I sat my first SAT, we'd covered all of the content and we were ready to do it. So I mean, like Crimson really know what they're doing in terms of like making sure that you stick to a schedule and making sure that things are done on time.
So I applied to 8 universities, so obviously University of Chicago, Harvard, Stanford, Penn, Yale, Princeton, and a couple others I can't remember, MIT. So in terms of the biggest challenge, I didn't really think going in, I felt prepared because Crimson had developed a really tailored strategy for me. So I felt comfortable in that sense, but I'd say the biggest challenge was trying to stay committed, because there were often times where I just wanted to give up and just say, oh, I'll just apply through UCAS or just go through the UK, because it's a lot of work in terms of sort of essays, extracurriculars, tests, and also just trying to have a life at the same time. But I'd say just trying to stay committed was probably the hardest thing, but you just know that it will be worth it in the end, as it is for all of us. So that was it.
Don, it was almost as if you knew exactly what I was going to ask next, which was about balance. You know, this isn't the space where we're just going to tell you what you want to hear, right? When I applied, it was definitely a little more stressful trying to balance the US process than it would have been just to apply to the UK. And you know, there are multiple reasons for that, no less than the fact that in the UK you write one personal statement. In the US, you tend to write about 1 or 2 essays per university that you apply to. But it's important to find that balance, right? It's a really important part. And I'm curious to know how you guys found that balance, full honesty, right? And how you try to strike a balance. What things did you do across your time at Crimson? How did you adjust your work over time at Crimson so that you felt that you were, at least keeping on top of things? We'll start with the person who applied to 21 universities.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I don't think I did find the balance. I got lucky, and like at the end, just somehow things happened. It wasn't balanced, so I don't think I can answer this question well.
I will say, not very few people, unlike Boris, do apply to 21 universities. I applied to 8. I would say that on average, 8 is probably the average. You're actually the first person I've ever heard that applied to over 20 universities. So
With the UK ones, it was definitely.
so congratulations on that. You've done a fantastic job. But sorry.
Yeah, so I was on a gap year, so I didn't have exams. I actually didn't apply to Oxbridge, so that was a lot easier. Already had my exam, already had my results and everything. So yeah, I did. Obviously, it was a bit rushed. Like my time management wasn't great. Like I did a couple on the final day. Remember, I rang you at like an hour before the deadline.
10 p.m.
Yeah. It's hard to, yeah, it's hard to keep motivated. Like I'm not into like writing and essays and stuff. Like I'm a like mathsy, sciencey guy, so it was tough to do all them. Yeah.
I think this probably sounds a bit strange, but I found it easier to keep the balance when I was actually at school, because when you're at school, you stick to your timetable, you come home, you get your homework done. Then I'd set aside some time to do my Crimson work, and one day in the weekend I'd do my Crimson work, and the other day I'd do my school work. So I did find there was a good balance there. Over the summer holidays, that's when I found that I was really, really pushed. And I think that's probably the time where I was most closest to giving up on the whole idea of going to America, because over the summer holidays, I was trying to re-revise for my SAT test because I was going to sit them again. I was going to sit my subject test again, so I was revising for that. I was trying to write my personal statement for UCAS so I could be ahead of that when I came back in year 13. And at the same time, I was trying to write all my American essays. So I definitely found like that was the hardest time to find your balance. But as long as you work hard when you do have time, like when I came back in year 13, I felt like I was a lot more prepared, I was a lot more organised then, and like I won't lie, it was really hard, but Crimson are really understanding about that. Though, you know, you can ask for an extension because they understand, especially if you're doing 4, like in some cases 5 A levels, they do understand that it's hard to manage your time, and they do understand where you're coming from. So it's all about communication, and as long as you're communicating like I need a bit more time, or I've got a bit more time now, they're really understanding, and they'll adjust their teaching for that.
So yeah, being honest, I don't think I ever found a balance, because doing 4 A levels plus sport plus university stuff plus exams, it just didn't work. So I'd say it really got tough during Christmas of year 13, where I was trying to revise for my mock exams, plus also trying to write 30 essays for different US universities. So yes, it was tough. Yes, a lot of sleep was lost. There was not really any sort of Christmas time with my family as much as I would have liked, but again, it's just very important that you sort of communicate to people, whether it be your family or your teachers or maybe your advisors at Crimson, that say you're finding stuff hard or you need an extension or you just need a bit of guidance. They can really help you with that, and I think you'll be surprised about the number of people who will help you if you're in need. So yeah, if you need help balancing, just ask, because that's the main thing.
Thanks very much. Yeah, I mean it's a challenging process, right? There's no doubt about it. But you know, it's a process that pays off if you put the work in, right? Like we can never guarantee that we'll get into the top universities, as we can't do with Oxford and Cambridge as well, right? There's a lot of work that go into those processes too, but it's something that you know you work on time management, right? You find a balance. You attempt to find a balance. You'll inevitably be writing some essays in December more than you would be in other months, right? Because that's just when the deadlines are coming around. My personal experience was I found a balance. I actually didn't work with Crimson or otherwise. I found a balance. But interestingly, I kind of, one of my subjects, I decided that I was just going to like take the foot off the gas a little bit. And then in the spring, in the next term and the next 2 terms, I had to step it up then, right, to catch up. But yeah, I mean, it's something where you can find that balance through both. It's taking the foot off the gas a little bit with your extracurriculars. That's kind of expected in your last year. Universities in the US do not expect you to be like going full steam ahead while you're submitting your applications, while you're maybe studying for SATs, because they recognize that this is a tough process. And then also, how many universities do you apply to? When do you start writing the essays? Any students that I'm working with right now, they've just started. They've just started writing their essays June, 6 months in advance, right, of the actual application deadlines. And you break it down, you're writing, let's say, 15 essays if you're applying to 5 places. That over the course of 6 months ends up being quite not too many on average as you run through. And then you get balance. You can edit and then kind of shift parts of your essays. So other essays, that's fine, right? There are many different ways that we will introduce you to in terms of finding that balance, but ultimately it's on the student to do the best that they can to then apply that and do the thing, let's say. With your strategy services, right? Like, this is the core of the Crimson program, right? Strategy is the, as a strategist, kind of head overseer, making sure that you're doing the right things at the right time, making sure that you're finding that balance. So I'm curious to know from you guys. You don't have to name any names, but how did you find the strategy component of the process? What did you enjoy about that part of the process? How did you find it helped you through your however long you worked with Crimson?
I think there were two main things that helped me throughout the working with Crimson, and they were basically split into one, keeping up with all the deadlines, staying organized, so submitting the right documents when you need to submit them, preparing for the right tests when you need to prepare for them. But I think the other thing that I overlooked at the start was how flexible the approach was. So it isn't just, this is your plan for the whole of the process and this is what's going to happen, because things change and you get overwhelmed at school or with another exam. And what I was surprised by is how willing Crimson was to adjust that strategy and the plans that they had for extracurriculars that I could improve on, or how I could pose, certain things that I had already done for the unis. It was just surprising how fluid the whole approach was. It was very tailored to each uni, and wasn't just like, oh, if you miss that deadline, you can't do that now. For example, I wanted to apply early to Stanford, actually, missed the deadline. No issue, just wrote the essays for the actual deadline, not the early one, and just applied. So it was, I think what was most helpful for me is how tailored and flexible it was to what was actually happening throughout the process, not just a set thing.
For me, it was really helps settle your stomach, because there's a lot of terms, there's a lot of things you have to do, deadlines you have to keep up with. But when you're with people who've done it before, you just feel that you're not missing out. There's not things that you've forgotten to do. You're on top of everything. You know you've got the stuff to do. That's it.
I think it's like what the other guys were saying. I think when you start the whole process, it seems quite daunting, and there's so much, and you're wondering oh my gosh, am I missing deadlines here? And if I miss them, what's going to happen? But when you speak to your strategist, they give you upcoming things that you need to start preparing for, things further down the line that you should be thinking about. And it really just it just eases yourself, and you sort of know in the long term, this is what I need to be thinking about, but in the present, I need to be worrying about this. And it just gives you a good guideline and a good step-by-step plan as to what's coming up, and also just reassuring you that you are doing the right thing and that you haven't missed anything, and that just to keep going. I think it's really good for that as well.
I think, to reiterate what these guys have said, Crimson sort of had me very they gave me a very rigid timetable in terms of what to do when, but again, it was very flexible. If I missed this deadline, I could sort of just push that back a bit. So I remember I missed the UPenn deadline, but then I applied to Chicago anyway, so that was fine. But also what I really liked about Crimson was it was very personalized and tailored, so they really got to know you as a person. So I had a team of about maybe 5 or 6 people. George was one of them, and they really just got to know me as a person. So that was really helped in terms of if I needed an idea for an essay, they can sort of tell me, oh, why don't you write about this? Because they know me that well. And I say, oh, yes, I like that. Oh, I don't like that. And it just felt the extra sort of personalization just really sort of helped, because it helped me sort of maintain a sort of friendly, professional working relationship with the team, and it just helped sort of calm my nerves a bit.
So the essay component, something that's come up a couple of times, and something that is, it's very different over in the US. The US process, the essays that you write are definitely of a different kind, right? And very quickly, what were the most surprising things? Number one, either the most surprising things, number two, the most surprising essays that you actually had to answer, if you can recall.
I think the most different thing compared to the personal statement you have to write for the UK is that, and teachers told me this before, I just didn't really imagine the extent of it. You have to be almost cheesy, you have to be very dramatic and over the top compared to how you are in the UK. So it's not just, this is what I've done, this is what I like, this is why I want to study it. You need to have some sort of story, some sort of arc, narrative for each essay, and I think that I didn't expect. The weirdest essay I had to write, I think, was actually for Chicago. It was invent a spell or magical object, talk about, or incantation, and talk about how it would help people, or I think it was how you would enjoy it. And so I wrote about a spell which you share thoughts with people for a given time, so like you can see artists' true visions and like cooperate on projects. It was very cheesy, very, very cheesy. Yeah, but I got in, so maybe that's what they want.
Yeah, the most different thing I found was like US versus UK, just like the culture. Like British people a lot more like reserved and a lot less like out there, and like Americans are very like in your face and they're a lot more open. Like I found I was writing stuff like you had to be almost like cocky, like to kind of fit in with the US like style. That was the biggest change, and it was like almost to the point where I was uncomfortable, like writing like, is this all right to write? Does this sound a bit too much? Yeah, that was that. The weirdest essay, there was nothing as weird as that magical spell, but they were all like out there stuff. Like probably the weirdest was like one historical moment you could have witnessed, but that's not too weird to be honest. But yeah, that's
very different to UK versus
yeah, different to like
right?
UK.
So very
Yeah.
different, yeah.
I think with the essays, the thing that I found probably the hardest was just the magnitude of essays. Like, you don't realise it until you're actually having to write them, but it's not as if you can have a skeleton for an essay and just fill in the blanks for each different university. And when you're really pushed for time, like in September or summer or even December, or whenever you're writing them, it's really tempting to just take out certain bits and like input little chunks from a different university. But like any sort of university, if you go there, if you read online, they say that they can tell, and I'm pretty sure they can. And Crimson really tell you, like, we can tell that you're doing this, and because I tried it one time as well, my strategist told me, we can tell what you're doing here, we know you're pushed for time, but just don't do it, because as soon as a university sees that you're doing that, you're written off straight away. So Crimson really know what they're doing in terms of that. And I feel like, especially when I was writing the personal essay, which goes to all of the universities, I mean, it wasn't a strange title. It was write about whatever you want in 600 words. I found that personally the hardest, because like, whatever you want, what do you write? But Crimson are really good with giving you suggestions about what you should write about, whether you should write about yourself, someone who you look up to, an event that happened. So yeah.
So as said before, what I found most surprising was the fact that in order to stand out, you almost have to be cocky, and you have to be cocky, but as well, you have to back that up with what you've done and with facts, because you have to remember you're competing against thousands upon thousands of people who are doing exactly the same thing. So in order to stand out, you have to be ahead of them. In terms of the weirdest essay I wrote, well, the University of Chicago has like a massive reputation of having very weird essay prompts. So the one I chose for them was just you have the prompt was you have to make up a random word of your choice and define it and give an example for it. So my word was Victor Brexidil, which I don't want to go into too much detail about, but quickly, it's Victo means obviously victory, Bregs from Brexit, Ood from Boudica, and Il from Churchill. I mean, if you want to find out more, you can speak to me afterwards. But yeah, but it's a very interesting process, because you also learn a lot about yourself in terms of the essays you write. You learn about how you write, how you think, how you feel, and you have to have a narrative as well. And although the essay I chose was a bit weird, you sort of have to make sure that it tells them something about you and about how you think, about how you react to certain situations, and about what you want to do sort of with your life at the university, etc.
So we spoke about strategy. Now let's talk about the other components, right? So you all had, to some extent or some way or another, tutors, academic tutors, standardized testing tutors, application mentors that help you with your essays. What would you say was the most important one to you, or the person who you really kind of thank for the work that they put in? I'd say try and give different answers, because I don't want us just to say application mentors for the essays. We know how important that is, and a lot of work goes into that. But
I was actually going to say my essay
Brilliant. No,
tutor.
go ahead,
Yeah, Tree, my essay tutor, just did a great job of, I think we mentioned this, but just getting to know me, because I don't like writing. I'm very maths focused, and for me, an issue with the essays wasn't necessarily coming up with the idea, but how to convey that narrative, which they want to see. And so Tree helped with that a lot. If I didn't pick him, it would probably be my extracurricular advisor, Donian, because I already had a couple extracurriculars, but he just helped me write all of those essays in a way that ties all of the activities I did together, instead of just, oh, this is what I did, this is another thing I did. Kind of make it into one thing so that they see that this is you, instead of you just did loads of things for uni.
where does Donian go?
He goes to Columbia, actually. Yeah.
So I didn't have any other like tutors aside from the essay thingy, I only had the essay one, so obviously that was my favourite one. He was called Lincoln. He was quite blunt, which was good. He was straight to the point, which was very helpful. And also George, thankful for that, because like you kind of need, obviously you have questions, you have a lot of things you want to ask, so it's good to just have someone to just email. Like if you got a question, I just like, if I had a question, thought like, oh, just email George, then got a response back. So really helpful just like to figure out like everything behind the process. Like there's no unanswered questions when you got somebody to message.
I think that my academic tutor was the most useful to me. She really went above and beyond for me, but not just for helping me with my SATs and my subject tests. I felt that I gained so much more from her as well in terms of learning about the system in America, how university in America was, what I'd like and what I probably wouldn't like, and just generally she was a great form of support. Like for example, the day before my SAT, I was really nervous just about small things like what size water can I bring in and what do I do if I need to go to the toilet in the middle of the 4-hour paper. And so she said just Skype me. So I spoke to her for about an hour, but the day before the SAT paper, and she was just telling me about all the rules and just really reassuring me about certain things to do with the exam. And I really feel like, in fact, all the tutors do this, but for me, really, my SAT tutor really went above and beyond in not just teaching me the stuff, but also helping me learn about the American system and learn about life in America.
It goes without saying, I think the team I had around me was just absolutely amazing. I had George was my strategist. I had 2 strategists, one left, but then George became my second strategist. But if I had to pick one, it would probably be Charlotte, who's sitting over there. She was my coordinator, basically. And she wasn't really sort of with me personally in terms of helping me with my actual application, but she was just someone who I could always talk to if I had any questions whatsoever, or if I was feeling sort of a bit stressed with something, or I needed help with just like an essay or like an idea. I mean, she can probably find a lot of emails where I'm emailing her like 1 a.m. in the morning, just randomly, about just a question I've had. But she's sort of like the person who sits at the top and just looks down on all the other people. And she was just very, very helpful in that sense.
That's true, she does. I'm petrified of Charlotte. Anyway, so final question about the process, and then we'll go on to reflections and talk about the exciting part when you actually got in. Even after you'd submitted your applications, right? There's no way of telling, of course, and you just have to sit and wait for the day to turn around. What was the one thing that you looked at on your profile and thought, okay, I'm a little bit nervous about this. Like, this is the thing that I think is maybe the thing that holds me back, if anything.
So as I mentioned, I don't have any sports or any music whatsoever. You look at the standard kind of candidate, even the guys sitting with me here, like everyone has something else apart from just academics. My application was very heavy on academics and very light on other things, so that's what I was worried about. Not only when I submitted my applications, but just throughout the whole process.
Yeah, I was quite similar. I only had 2 things that I had, obviously academics, that, as with everyone, like grades and stuff. Then I also had basketball and engineering. Those were my 2 things. So it kind of seemed like every question I was like kind of trying to shoe in either basketball or extracurriculars. So it kind of got a bit repetitive, and I thought they kind of think I'm a bit shallow, because obviously all the American people have like tons and tons of extracurriculars, like Model UN and all that stuff. So I just thought I was kind of made me realize like I'm a bit boring, like I don't do much. So yeah, that was my main problem.
Yeah, I'd actually say the same as those other 2 guys there as well. So I didn't get round to doing a capstone project, which is what Crimson sort of push you for, which is like a massive extracurricular project, which really puts you leagues above like a lot of other people who will be applying. So I didn't manage to get time to do that. Instead, I tried to focus on my other smaller extracurriculars. So I was a bit nervous about the fact that I didn't have that, because I think you'll find that when you're applying, if you hear about what people in America are doing for their extracurriculars, you'll be really shocked, like setting up foundations, running magazines, it's really at a high level that they're doing their extracurriculars, and it's quite daunting when you're running on like a school basis sort of level. So that's what I was most nervous about.
So I think the thing that held me back the most, looking back, I think George and Charlotte know what I'm going to say, is my SAT score. So I did the SAT 4 times, and I did great if you look at sort of how I rank nationally across the world. So my score would have been top 10%. If you're interested, it was 1390. But if you have to consider the range of schools I'm applying to, they're all sort of Ivy League, top 10 schools. So that was really out of the range for those sort of schools. But Again, I got very lucky at the fact that with the University of Chicago, I didn't have to give my A-levels, and I could just use my I didn't have to give my SATs. I could use my A-level predicted grades as a sort of another thing to meet the requirements. But again, with the SAT, I wouldn't say that was down to Crimson, because their team, in terms of the tutors, was outstanding. I'd say I almost took it for granted. I thought, oh, the fact that I have a tutor means I'm going to get a good score, which it doesn't. You have to still put in the work yourself. And that's something I think, looking back, I didn't do as much of, but that's as well, that comes back to a thing of balance and how much you're doing at what certain times. So, yeah.
I'm sure you guys can all agree that they haven't got into the American mindset yet, right? They're so humble. You're definitely not boring. I can tell you that right now. There's nothing boring. You guys are all absolutely incredible, right? We know how well you've done. Don, you didn't get lucky, right? You're going to Chicago is consistently been one of the top 5 universities in the US for the last few years, right? All universities that are consistently in top 5, top 10, right? No, nobody gets lucky to get into these universities, and there's a lot of hard work that goes into that process. And we've heard that, right? We've heard that it's not a straightforward process. It's a challenging process, but it's important to, find a way to navigate that in an efficient way. But that's enough about the process, right? I see a lot of videos online of students who, film and record when they were accepted, right? I'm sure there are plenty more videos that don't go out there of people when they're not accepted, but I'd love to hear from you guys about the moment that you found out that you got into your respective schools. So, with as much or as little detail as possible, where were you? How did you find out? Who were you with? How did you celebrate? With as few or as many details as possible.
So the first 2 decisions I opened were Harvard and Princeton, I think, and I got rejected from both. And then there was a 45-minute delay for all my other decisions for some reason. Yeah, so that was a great 45 minutes. With very few details, I started celebrating before I got into any unis, because I was just like, I can't wait for this time. It's too much. So I just started having drinks with my parents, whatever, and then I actually got into unis. Yeah, that was good. I think what helped with that, I celebrated, but what helped is I already had a couple options in the UK before, so I had a backup. Didn't really go out clubbing or anything, nothing fun, just, nothing that fun.
Yeah, I was the same. First one was MIT, didn't get in. Second, with the Ivies, I didn't get into Harvard, got waitlist to Columbia, then got into Penn, but the financial aid kind of wasn't enough, so I didn't know if I could go or not. The last one was Stanford, which is obviously like in my eyes, the hardest one, so I wasn't sure if I'd get into that. So I was down the pub. I was waiting for like 2 hours. It seemed like longer than 2 hours. Went to my car, opened it up on my phone. Yeah, got in, celebrated a bit in my car. Then I was supposed to ring my parents on the hour, and they were ringing me like, "Hey, Josh," I was ignoring the call. So I got in the car. My mate drove me to see them, and then I walked in, and they were like, "This is 20 minutes after they should have got the decision," so they were fretting what's happened, why is he not speaking to us? Then I went in, hugged them, and then that all went well.
So I applied early decision, so I only heard back from UPenn. I had to cancel the rest of my applications. So my decision came in December. My mum had just taken me to see the Nutcracker, and we just got home. We had to wait till midnight for the results to come out. So me and my family were just sitting around the table waiting until midnight. We refreshed the page, and then it came up with a little banner and the little anthem, and "You've been accepted, congratulations." And it was just really a complete thing of just disbelief from, even my parents were just shocked as well. We were all just shocked for a while, but then afterwards we were so happy, we just couldn't believe it. I emailed Crimson at midnight, emailed my whole team, I called my family. The next day I went out with my friends. It was one of the best feelings ever, because you felt obviously you get in, but you feel like so many people helped you along the journey, right from the teachers who write your references to people at Crimson to your parents who are there trying to motivate you when you don't want to work. So it's it's almost like everyone gets in. It's just the best feeling.
So the day I got in, it was a bit of a long day, and I have to cut some details out. But those who know, they know the story. But so my school did this thing where in sixth form, we have sort of parties with year 12 and year 13, and that's just to help the year 12s integrate into the school. So I helped organize it. But then, so I found out then, I saw on my phone, I got an email, but I had a bit too much to drink. So I didn't really take in the fact that, oh, my decision is out. And I remember I forgot my password, I think 20 times. So I got locked out of my account. So then I had to reset my password, then log in again. And then I saw all these fireworks just start popping off my phone. I thought, oh my God, what's this? And then I realized, oh, it said congratulations, I got in. But I didn't really take it in until the next day once I'd sort of recovered a bit. But no, it was really good, yeah.
Yeah. Be careful if you get the decision. Some unis have a dark screen before any message comes up. Like, so something start and it's a dark screen, and then the congratulations comes up.
They delay it a little bit.
Yeah, that was nasty.
Attention.
That was just nasty.
They can get quite nasty. I was very lucky. So I applied regular decisions to all my universities, and one day in the middle of February, I was sick, so I was home from school, wasn't doing anything, kind of lazing about, actually enjoying not being at school, I hate to admit. And my dad came in after work, it was like 5 p.m, and he said, oh, you've got a letter from Harvard in the postbox. I'm like, okay, well, it's middle of February, so it's either just an information letter or they've just rejected me early. And then I open it, I'm like, okay, what's this? And I look at it, and it says, congratulations, we are intending to accept you into the class of 2016. And I still reel from that moment, right? It's like such an incredible moment when you get that offer. It feels, in that moment, it feels life-changing, right? There was only one other university that I was interested in that would par Harvard for me, and that was Yale. Yale was actually my top choice. And I was out, and I'd gone to the bathroom and checked my emails just because, like, why not? And I'd got this rejection email from Yale. So I was like, okay, I know where I'm going. And that was in the toilet of Sugar Hut. If anybody knows Sugar Hut, terrible place. So don't ever go there. But anyway, that's my story. We'll wrap up. We've got probably 10 more minutes, and then if we have any questions that you want to ask, feel free. We'll probably have a couple of minutes for questions, and then if you want to come and ask them, if you guys are more than happy to stick around just for a little bit. How have your lives changed since getting in, even now, right? Has anything occurred that is kind of surprising in the aftermath of getting your offers? What kind of things have you met? What have people been saying to you? Give us a little snapshot of those.
For me, the biggest thing that changed was, so I have 6 brothers and 1 sister. And my sister's always like the special one because she's the one sister. And the boys of the family actually have to do stuff to be told well done and whatever. But as soon as I got in, I have not been questioned from that moment. Like, any trip you want, anything you want to do, just do it. So that's been very nice.
I'm similar. Parents have eased up on me. They're a lot more chill now. I've actually got like an end goal in mind. Like, I actually know I'm going, which is good. Like, when you're in limbo for like a few months, you don't know what you're going to do with your life. Like, that's not a good feeling to have. So it's good. Like, a lot of people obviously recognise like the Stanford name and stuff. It's quite annoying. Some people recognise like all the rest, but not Stanford because it's kind of a lot newer. But yeah, obviously, say you walk around with like a Stanford top on. So yeah, some people kind of notice, and yeah, it's good.
I'd say for me, it's really with my friends. They're still saying, I can't believe you're going to America. We're going to miss you so much, even though they're all going to university too. I still feel like I'm in a bit of shock that I'm going, and it's not really going to hit me until I'm actually on the flight to America. And then I'm going to really think, okay, I'm actually leaving now.
So yeah, again, I think I can just sort of weather stop around London, and then I have like a couple of alumni just stop me and say, oh, do you go to University of Chicago? And then we have like a conversation, and it's just, I've been opened up to like a whole new network of people who I'd never thought I'd be interacting with, and there's just sort of a range of different people in different professions, different characters. So I think I've been exposed to like a whole new world, so it's been great.
When I got in, you realize immediately that you're part of like a lifetime family in a way that you don't find in the UK personally. I mean, that's my personal opinion, right? As soon as I got in, I was getting emails from the alumni associations in the UK saying, come out, for events, come and meet people that are going to be going with you, meet alumni who are already out there. I was saying to Don earlier, it was in April, just after I'd been accepted, went to an event in Chelsea at an alum's house, and it was for parents and for students. So I was just getting to know the students who I was going to be attending for the next 4 years, and my parents happened to meet somebody and, oh, so what do you do? Like, what's your career? And he's like, oh, I work at the BBC. Oh, okay. Like, what do you do? I'm the Director General of the BBC. And then who's then went on to be the chief editor or something, the CEO of the New York Times. And it was just like, I wasn't really meeting people like that when I was anything between 0 and 18, I can tell you that. And beyond that, right, beyond those funny stories, truly, like even now, and you guys are going to find this over the 4 years and beyond, even when you leave, right, like you never leave your university's family. It's such a community. That's one of the things that really inspired me to look into the US anyway, and it's probably the thing that I take the most from my time there, right? I still get emails all the time saying, come to this event, or, I'll have somebody message me on any kind of social media saying, oh, I went as well. I went to Harvard Business School 10 years ago. Let's go and get a drink and just like connect over that experience. And it's a family for life. So I'm super excited for you guys. I'm also kind of jealous because I so want to go back. It's such a great time. So let's wrap up with one final question. And that's advice. So we've spoken a lot about the challenges that you faced and the things that you think maybe you could have done differently, but what is one piece of advice you would give to any students, wherever they are in the process when it comes to applying to US universities? And context from the UK as well will be useful, right? Because different experiences around the world, and the UK application process or UK students applying to universities in the US has its own specific context.
I think for me, the biggest piece of advice I can give is definitely don't apply to unis that you know you won't go to or you're not 100% set on going to. So make sure all the options you do put in the work for are ones you would be completely happy going to. I think there were more than a couple of unis that I just applied to for the sake of applying. You should not do that. It's a lot of work. Just don't. Apart from that, essays, I guess, just do them in advance.
Yeah, I'd say definitely start essays early. Like I started them, I was really late. Like it was probably like October, yeah. So yeah, I started really late. That's not a good thing to do. So now is the perfect time to start. I'm not sure if the essay problems have come out yet, but they're kind of.
They come out August 1st, by the way.
Yeah.
They
that's the perfect time to start. I'd also not stress about stuff that doesn't really matter. Like there are things that are just minute details. Like it was on the SAT essay. Like I was studying half of that when I should have been like focusing on essays. So yeah, I definitely just really look into like what really makes the difference and focus on that rather than focusing on little things like plus 10 SAT score. Like just focus on the stuff that really matters.
It truly is holistic. Right? They do, when you get to those top universities that are making decisions from 40,000 down to 2,000, right? It really starts to get to kind of like a feel for how this student compares to that student rather than any figures. So that's a really good point.
I think I said this before, but really just trust your Crimson team. Like they've done this for thousands of students over so many years. It worked for us. If you listen to them and you really take on board what they're saying, because they know what they're doing in terms of planning and scheduling and keeping you on track and making sure you don't miss stuff out. So really just trust them and listen to them. Like there'll be times where you read something online and you think, oh, hold on, wait, maybe I do know a bit better about this one thing, but they really, really know what they're doing, and like they'll make sure they'll make sure you're achieving your potential and that you're at a high level, like the best you can be when it comes to apply.
I'd say the biggest piece of advice I give is just believing that you're good enough to get in. So I think when I was applying, I didn't think I was good enough simply because I'd read so many different sort of articles and forums of people doing all these amazing stuff, like founding companies and sort of being heads of whatever club. And I compare it to what I do, and I think, oh, I can't compare. I have no way of getting in. But the fact that you're already here, at Crimson in year 11 or 12 shows that you're already committed, you're serious. So it's about actually doing stuff and having sort of the just the desire and the drive and the belief that you can actually do stuff that can have an impact with your application, with your life as well. So as long as you have that in yourself, then who knows who will accept you.
Brilliant. So can we all please give our wonderful students a round of applause? Team, thank you so much. Thank you so much for all of your efforts.